Welcome to Podnutz Pro, show number 37. I am Lalo Nunez along with Matt Brainy, the co-host, and we are back from our little break, and we're not going anywhere. We're always going to be here answering your questions and trying to keep you entertained. But welcome to the show. How you doing, Mr. Rainey?
Oh, doing just fine. Yes, need a break once in a while.
Yes,
Everybody needs a break once in a while.
exactly. But
But
now,
doing good. Yep. Like I said, it's a break from podcasting, not from work. Unfortunately, work piles up, and you never get a break from that. Of
yep, very true.
course, when you get a break from work, then you're in a bad position usually. So,
I agree. I definitely agree. And the dog's going to start barking now. Thank you, Roxy.
dogs don't need breaks.
I know the dogs are awesome, and that's why I love them all. But welcome back to the show. If you haven't listened to us for a long time, and thank you for all the kind emails saying where you've been. We've I missed you. So we are back, and today we're just gonna go over a few stories and go over some emails that have been building up in our inbox. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Uh, yeah. So it's been an interesting past month. We've had just a we've been doing the past month and what I have scheduled over the next few months. I don't even count them. Let's see, I did two new server migrations or installs the past couple of weeks, and I think I have a new server or servers because some companies are replacing one small business server with up to four servers because of their growth. So I've got at least seven or eight jobs like that. So I've got pretty much one a week for the next few months,
Wow.
which is going to be pretty busy in addition to all the day-to-day stuff. Um, so that's been keeping very busy.
Now, let me ask you this: when you have a client that is going from, as you described, one server to four servers, how long do you put aside for time wise to complete a project like that?
Well, I'd like to do at least a week between. So if I'm going to start one on a Monday, I'd rather not have another job like that scheduled till the next week.
Okay.
But sometimes that's not possible. Sometimes I've got guys on one install where I'm working on one and then we start another one because I think it's at a point where we can move on. But with so many of them scheduled right now, a lot of them want to be done by the first of the year, which is not going to be possible. But and the small business server people, I've got a few of them that are approaching the limit, 75 limit.
Okay.
So they're going straight server, not small business server anymore. So that'll be a different kind of migration. Um, But the two I've had before, the first one, they decided to get a new server and all new workstations. Oh, not all new workstations. They replaced about 80% of their workstations.
Okay.
And so because of that, I decided not to do a migration because they replaced some computers or a lot of their computers, and some of them were handing the computers down. So I think two people kept their same computers. So since I hate migrations, I decided it wasn't worth doing a migration for two computers because all the other ones were going to get new profiles, new computers. Didn't
Right.
really matter. That was a mess, which we'll get into because I got an issue about that. Um, and the next one was a 2011 small business server, but we couldn't do a migration for them because their server kept locking up, which is why we were replacing it because it was so old. I think it was 8 years old. And they finally decided to let us put a new one in. So kept locking up. We couldn't. I didn't want to do a migration because if you've ever done a migration, when you're at one point, if it fails, you're kind of you're
Dead.
yeah yeah. Of course, in a migration, you're first going to back up the system state of
Sure.
the. So you have to restore that and then start all over again, which can be really annoying. Which I've had to do a few times, even on normal migrations, it messes up and you got to start over, which is one of the reasons I hate migrations. But we'll get into that later. So, I guess first thing I want to talk about is actually it's a pretty good story because it has three or four different things that are good tips and things you need to know about. This is a small business server, 2003. It's kind of old. It should be replaced. It should be on my list, but it's not yet. Got a call from one of the users. He doesn't work in the office. He works out of the office. And he just told me he's having problems with email. He says he can't get email. He says he tries Outlook web access. He logs in, says page cannot be displayed. So the first thing I do is I try it. I log into the Outlook web access page and I log in and it works. I can see my mail. But I did do it as administrator. So then I said, well, let's look at your computer. And at this point, I didn't put it together. I was using administrator. He was using, of course, his account.
Okay.
Connect his computer, and he's using a Mac, which he didn't tell me that he was using a Mac, but it just makes a little bit of difference. Look at his Mac. He's running Tiger, pretty old version of the Mac OS. And he says he's been using OWA for a long time, and today it just didn't work. Of course, checked on the server before this, checked on the server, make sure services are running, make sure the information store is mounted, that kind of thing. Looking at any event logs, I didn't see any errors at first. I'm gonna get to that. Of course, and this is important. Don't assume things. I assumed that it was just him because he's called before with issues that when we look into them, he's doing something wrong. So I assumed he was doing the wrong thing again, which was took me a few more minutes to solve this problem because of my assumption. So he shows me what he's getting. Sure enough, I connect to his computer. He's getting page not display. I try from my computer as him. Doesn't work. I thought, well, that's interesting. So I try. He says, well, actually, I want to use a mail client. I don't want to use Outlook Web Access. So I set him up. Unfortunately, he's
On his Mac.
Exchange on his Mac. So this is a SBS 03, so Exchange 03, which you don't get the active sync built in for Apple Mail. So I said, well, you're going to have to use a POP account or an IMAP account. He said, well, I know how to set it up. I'll do that. Okay, great. He calls you back. It's not working. I can't get it to work. So when this happens, instead of messing with his computer, I like to just use Windows Live Mail and set it up on my computer. Windows Live Mail, it's quick to set it up, and I like the errors. If you have an error, it gives you nice errors. Because on his, it just kept popping up, username, password, like it's the wrong password. So I set it up on mine, and I hit send and receive. It says, of course, send and receive error. But you go to the errors tab, and I get a nice little thing here. It says, the first part's confusing. It says, unable to send or receive messages for this account. An incorrect password was entered. The next time you send or receive messages, you'll be asked to enter your username and password for this account. That's the body. Below that, server error, some kind of hex number, server response dash ERR error. Insufficient number of client access licenses.
Ooh, winner, winner, chicken dinner.
Yes. So I thought, well, that's strange because no one over there has called with any problems. And this client is not slow to call if there's a problem. So I'm still logged in the server. I look at the server, and sure enough, SBS licenses shows installed 5, which means the built-in 5 that you get with SBS, nothing else. So I called the client.
Now, real quick, for the folks at home, when you say 5 built-in licenses, what are we referring to?
Okay, so when you have small business server, it comes with 5 client access licenses, which means you're allowed 5 users basically connecting and using the resources on your server.
Right.
So I look in the event logs again, and I do see random errors about such and such denied access, such and such denied access, no client access license available. So I looked at we have our work order system where I can look in my work order logs, and I did see a work order from a few days ago where this client called saying their C drive was full. Now, small business server 03 and 07, If you've remembered, by default, all the iPhones, Droids, whatever that's doing active sync to an Exchange server, it logs every single visit. I think we talked about this before. So under C Windows System 32 log or log files, something like that, they have the log files for IIS in there.
Okay.
I found one of their log files that's logging all these active sync connections was 45 gigabytes of log files.
Holy cow.
So that's what filled up their drive a few days before. And a few days before I deleted them, everything worked fine. But when I got this call, I remembered that I did that. Now, is a bug in SBS03, I think I've talked about before too, but when the C drive of a small business server 2003 fills up, one of the things that it does is delete your license file.
That's right. I do remember that.
Yes, so if your C drive filled up for any reason, SBS 2003, your license file's gone. It's gonna, I have no idea why. I mean, it's a bug, of course. So I'm sure it wasn't a planned feature,
A planned feature.
but it's gone. It's gone. So hopefully you've got a backup. So with this, I had to go and see if they had an SBS license backup because in SBS server management, you can go to licenses, you can do backup licenses.
Okay.
And it's not very clear how to do this. Basically, you click on backup licenses, you browse to wherever you want to save it. I usually create a folder called SPS license backup on the desktop of the administrator or the root of C drive, and you just have to give it a name .txt. It doesn't really make it clear how you do that. Just type in, I usually do the date. So if it was today, it'd be 11/16/11.txt. Keep that in the SPS license backup. Now you have a backup. But you have to do this before you lose your licenses. Because if you do it after,
That would be important.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, most clients, when you give them the stuff, when we sold them their server, we gave them all the paperwork, licenses, everything. Don't lose this. Can they find it? Of course not. So, if you don't have this SPS license backup and they don't have their cows to key in again, there is one thing you can do. And I think we've covered it before, but real quickly, Windows System 32 folder. Microsoft is nice enough to make an automatic backup of your SPS cows. It's in a file called auto-licstr.cpa. Auto license whatever .cpa. So you can restore using this. So what you do is you stop the license service. Now you're going to have two files in this System32 folder. One's licstr.cpa and one's auto licstr.cpa. Now what I see when this happens is the licstr.cpa is like 3K. It's small. And the auto one is around 25K. So for some reason, the list licstr CPA, which is where the license is held, the contents of that just get blown away. But you can stop the license logging service. You can rename licstr.cpa. You just do whatever lis. Actually, you can delete it. You don't need it. I usually copy that auto licstr.cpa file to the desktop, rename it licstr.cpa, copy it back, start the license login service, and in about 30 seconds, your licenses will show back up in your SPS license console.
Now, how often does small business server make this automated backup?
That's a good question. I think it does it whenever you add licenses.
Okay.
So if you make a change in license, I think it updates that.
Gotcha.
But so once you do this, of course, you want to do an SPS license backup because you don't have to stop any services. It's easier to restore it if you have the SPS license backup. But this is a way to do it if you didn't do it and you need to do it.